The program we're going to discuss was a public access television show that aired for 11 years, from 1991 to 2002. However, an external event linked to it has made it even more bizarre. The show itself was already quite strange. It revolved around an elderly man who wore a lime-colored mask with deer-like teeth, a grey wig, and glasses. His wife, who was younger than him, wore a lemon-colored mask, a brown wig, and also glasses. Most of the time, they simply sat at a table in a quiet setting, reading and singing together. That, in essence, was the entire premise of the show. Now let's talk about the lost media and a rather grotesque detail. Although the show ended in 2002, it had a blog that remained active until 2011. On this site, the names of the characters were revealed as Gus and Emma. At some point, the blog featured a disturbing post titled "The Family Reunion of Gus and Emma Linsky." While the title itself might not seem significant, the post contained a series of images, one of which stood out due to its highly graphic nature. A horrifying, unidentifiable corpse. No one knows who decided to include that image in the post, but it was so unsettling that the entry was eventually deleted from the blog. Strangely, this post was published in 2010, 8 years after the show had ended. However, it remains accessible through Wayback Machine. As of today, only a few fragments of the show have survived, some of which have been uploaded to YouTube. At one point, full episodes had been posted on the show's official channel, but they were later removed for unknown reasons. Because of this, the case is considered only partially recovered. However, they remain just fragments. I also realized that the show wasn't exactly child-friendly. It contained some rather mature themes. One particular segment stands out. The characters are seen looking at a magazine featuring a close-up of a person's rear, and then the camera zooms in on Mrs. Lemon's backside. This is just an extra detail I wanted to mention. As I said before, this case is still evolving, and who knows if more footage will surface in the future. What's certain is that just a few weeks ago, new clips were recovered suggesting there's still more to uncover. Areline Martinez was a 21-year-old Mexican TikToker whose life ended unexpectedly on October 2nd, 2020. She was filming a video with a group of friends, a staged dramatization meant for TikTok. In the scene, Areline and another young man were tied up on a couch, playing the roles of victims, while several others acted as aggressors, pretending to threaten them with firearms. But what began as just another piece of content quickly turned tragic. One of the participants accidentally discharged a weapon, unaware that it had a round chambered. The shot struck Areline in the head, leading to her sudden passing. After the incident, all the participants fled the scene, and their whereabouts remain unknown. The only known footage from that day is a behind-the-scenes clip, uploaded by a user named Kenny G before the tragedy occurred. However, the full footage of the scene has never been released and is currently considered lost media. As of now, it's still unclear who the cameraman was, or whether Kenny G recorded the event herself. And perhaps more unsettling is the possibility that the story we've heard isn't the full story. On November 26, 1977, in certain parts of southern England, the television signal was suddenly hijacked during the ITN news broadcast. At 5:10 p.m., out of nowhere, a supposed alien being named Vrion, claiming to be a representative of an intergalactic federation, took over the signal and delivered a long, unsettling message.
Based on one man, one vote. But, he says, there are conditions. These include stopping the execution of all captured prisoners of war, allowing the Iranians to take part in negotiations, being arrested. In Australia, Mr. Kerry Packer is treated.
Voice of Allah. representative of the Ashtar Galactic Command, speaking to you. For many years you have seen us as lights in the servants. We speak to you now, you service them as we have done to your brothers and sisters all over this, your planet Earth. This is in order that you may share in great awakening.
The Vrion broadcast interruption is arguably one of the strangest and most mysterious signal hijackings in history. It's now known as the Southern Television Interruption. The entire event lasted over 6 minutes, and then the broadcast returned to normal. But by then, many viewers were already shaken by what they had just witnessed. To this day, transcripts and recreations of the event began to circulate because no one had managed to record the original broadcast. That footage is considered lost media, a fragment of broadcast history that, if it was ever captured on tape, has never resurfaced. Eyewitnesses recall the news image distorting, while a loud buzzing sound took over the audio. Then, a deep, artificial-sounding voice replaced the news anchor. For over 6 minutes, the voice identified itself as Vrion, though some remember different names like Gilon, Asteron, or Asterius. The message itself was a spiritual warning for mankind. Vrion claimed humanity had to learn to live in peace and abandon the weapons of evil in order to enter the so-called Age of Aquarius. This is just a summary. The full transcript takes about 6 minutes to read, which makes it even stranger that someone would go through the trouble of hijacking a national signal with such a lengthy speech. Whoever did this clearly had a lot of free time that day. When the message ended, the broadcast resumed with a Looney Tunes cartoon, but the sense of relief didn't come right away. Hundreds of viewers from southern England began calling the station. In confusion and concern, Southern Television issued an official apology later that same night. The event was even mentioned during ITN's late-night bulletin. The IBA, the Independent Broadcasting Authority, which was the organization responsible for regulating live broadcasts in the UK, declared that it was the first time a signal had ever been hijacked in the country in that way. At the beginning, it seemed like any other private party, thrown by someone with too much money and too many enemies. A celebration filled with music, drinks, and close friends. It was Rafael Arellano Felix's birthday, the former leader of the infamous Tijuana cartel, surrounded by people he trusted. And to add a strange, almost humorous touch to the night, a clown had been hired for entertainment. Full costume, colorful wig, exaggerated makeup, no one suspected a thing. The music was loud, the drinks were flowing, and Arellano Felix was enjoying what would be the last night of his life. Because that clown wasn't there to make anyone laugh. In that footage, you can clearly see it, the clown, walking calmly toward Arellano Felix. Then, the shots, the panic, the screaming, the music cuts off, and the birthday celebration turns into a crime scene. A cartel figure, taken out at his own party by a hitman dressed as a clown. A hitman who, according to several sources, was none other than El Chino Antrax, sent to settle an old score. At first, only the news of his death spread through the media, but behind closed doors, rumors began to swirl. Someone had recorded the attack, a video that vanished almost as quickly as it appeared. Hidden, buried, suppressed. Years later, it resurfaced, but not the full tape. The only thing that remains is a short fragment, just a few seconds long,